Well, today, as usual, I've got nothing to say. Absolutely nothing. It's the second day of the year 2023, and I've got nothing to say. Except when I just got out of the shower and I was blowing my nose and cleaning out my nostrils and stuff. It occurred to me that I was using the same tissue to clean out both sides of my nose. And out of one side, I got quite a bit of boogers. And out the other side, I got quite a bit of boogers as well. But because I care so much for the environment, I used the same tissue all the way through. I didn't even think to grab another one. I just used the other side. Yeah. Give it a good clean out. Got some great amounts of snot. Like not snotty snot, just boogers, just moisturized by the shower. And well, but it made me think. Because I'm a thinker, and sometimes I probably think a little bit too deeply, but it reminded me of my childhood, how I'd often come out in the morning after going back for my second sleep, because I'd always be the first one awake. I'd be super quiet like a mouse. I'd open up the cupboard, take a bowl out, no clink, put 2 Weet-Bix in, take some milk out the fridge, put brown sugar on both of them, and as I'd be eating them, I'd make the tiniest little clink on my bowl. Mother would go, "What are you doing up so early? Go back to bed, Ross." Fuck. I was just an early riser. So, what else are you going to do? It's pitch black. You might as well go out and have some breakfast, eh? It's one less thing you have to do later. So, anyway, when I got up later on my second arising, there would be Mother sitting in a dressing gown, because it's cold, we grew up in a cold climate. She'd have a tissue sort of held to her nose, and she'd put it up the sleeve of her dressing gown, like old women do. But she wasn't even old back then. Well, she was to me, but now she's old. I'm older than she was back then. So she's back when she was young. As you know, we've got to have a drink, eh? Cheers. Oh, yeah. So she'd often be there with the tissue, just going, wiping her nose. Whatever, it's just a normal sort of everyday thing, and I could see she's just conserving tissues. And myself, the young whippersnapper going to school, I was, let's just put it mildly, I was fucking smart, okay? I was bright. I started school when I was 4.5. Most kids started when they're 5 to 5.5. So I started school a year early. Okay, so that's neither here nor there. It just means that throughout my lifetime of going to school, most of my friends and that are associated with in my year, they were as much as a year and sometimes more older than me. So I'm just young, like it's neither here nor there. It's just an arbitrary age, but you know what I mean. But my thing, right, because I had it indentured. It wasn't in my dentures. I don't even have dentures. They're real. It was. I think that the word is indentured. It was indentured into my mind that we have to preserve the environment. And of course, paper comes from trees, and we have to save the trees. And so, in my innocent youth, we'd do a lot of writing in books. We had exercise books, we'd get them every year, new exercise books. And I didn't come from a particularly what we would call wealthy family. We were one of those ones that you go out to buy books once per year, you go out to buy school shoes once per year. Oh, I never needed new school shoes because I had a big brother. I could just inherit his. That's why I got fucked up feet. Thank you. That's not. So, books, paper, conserved paper. So what I did, right, being a little lefty as I was, I learnt to write really, really tiny. And we learnt cursive writing, of course, so I would write in script. I was a very messy handwriter, being a left-hander, but as it turned out, as one of my punishments one time for doing something I never did, I got punished for like weeks while everybody else was doing other activities for something I never did, mind you. Like, I was a good student, actually. I was like too bright. That's why I could never be repeated through my years. I was too bright, but I was also so bright that I would never do something so bad that I'd get into shit. But when I did get into shit, it was for something I never did because I wasn't that stupid. But I get accused of it and couldn't prove myself otherwise. And so anyway, for 2 weeks or whatever, I had to learn how to do proper cursive. So instead of a P just being a P, it was like a big H with a long leg down the bottom and stuff like that. And the F was a big curly F and all that sort of shit. So I learned how to do really, really fancy cursive. But at the same time, because I was so environmentally aware, there's so much of my life that I wish I could get back, but I cannot. I would go so far as to cram the last word into the end of the line on the piece of paper. Every single line. I would just cram that word into it. And meanwhile, when I'm writing otherwise and I have to cross something out, it's like, I really cross it out because I didn't want anybody to see my mistakes, of course. So I rarely made them. Had a lot of fucking... But you know what I mean? Is that when I got to the end of the page, it would always come up too soon because when you write in cursive, you're using too much ink on the paper to make the word. So when you get to the end, you just cram that shit in and you're basically writing letters over on top of letters. And that's probably one of the reasons why I didn't go so well in school at the end of the day, because I just forced myself to learn to write really small. Whereas somebody who can really express himself, they just take a whole page and write, in the beginning, sort of thing. I wasn't that sort of person. I think it's possible I had a few too much to drink today. That's probably why I'm talking to the camera. See, I don't talk to the camera the majority of the time because the majority of the time I'm actually very, very sober. And because it's the new year, what I thought I might do is invent a time machine and go back in time. No, hang on, that don't work. Yeah, no. Tell you what, because it's a new year, I'll continue to do what I do, but I'll do it better. So, for my New Year's resolution, this time around, I think I'll just save the world. I know. You probably think, The fuck? And I agree. Like, the fuck? Why would you say that? The world's gone to shit. The world has absolutely gone to shit. And you know why? Yeah, it's all my fault. I let it. Sorry about that. Oh, hang on. No. It wasn't me. It was you. You let it go to shit. It was all you all along. Because you didn't stand up and express your will, your written will. And I guess this is what we're talking about. You can't write it on your hand. You have to write it on paper. And paper, believe it or not, I know, this is my downfall. I was brought up with the belief that there's a shortage of paper. Turns out there's not. Apparently it grows on trees. And even if they cut down the trees, more trees will grow back in its place. So I guess what I'm trying to say is climate change is a bunch of bullshit. You have been bullshitted from a young age, just as I was. The fact that I was cramming words into the edge of my page to save paper as a child. When I'm blowing my nose on it, I'm getting letters delivered on it. I can do Sudokus on it. There's no shortage to paper. Yeah, I wipe my butt with it too. The climate hoax is one of the biggest lies we've been fed. Possibly second only to being on a globe in the first place. You can't have global warming without a globe. So they have to invent the globe first. And then they can invent a global warming. Holy fucking shit, man. If we could put a greenhouse around everything, we'd have such an abundance of food and trees to make paper out of. Yeah, no, it's everything you've been told since day dot is a motherfucking lie. Everything. From living on a globe to scarcity. Oh, that one came out with a demon. To scarcity. It all boils down to the select at the top deciding how profitable it is to them to make. And so if it's not profitable enough to them to make, they'll create scarcity, increase the prices, and of course they've been fucking the earth the whole time. And because somebody's pulled their fucking heads in and said, hey, stop fucking the earth, then they also have to then say, well, we have to look after the environment. That's going to increase the cost. For fuck's sake. For centuries upon centuries upon centuries, we had hemp. Hemp makes the finest paper, the finest textiles, clothing, the finest housing, hempcrete, the finest paint, the finest oil, whether we use it for industrial purposes or for cooking purposes, it's the most nutritious oil. And it's the best medicine for mankind. So you have to ask yourself then, why is hemp a sick bird, an ill eagle? Why? Because it's something that anybody can grow. Any farmer can grow and were growing. 80% of the world's tradable commodities used to be based on hemp. And so what happened around the time they sunk the Titanic, which wasn't the Titanic, it was the Olympus. Ooh. Didn't take too long. Took a little while, a couple of world wars and stuff, but eventually they were able to outlaw hemp on the basis that some kind of wacky tobacco, an obscure form of wild tobacco that the Mexican natives were growing and smoking and getting high of, and all the Negroes were smoking and getting high of and raping all the white women. That's the story of hemp in a nutshell. And when the legislators back in the day, back in Congress, I think it was around 1923, or was it 1820? 1923, or was it 1933? It's one of those years anyway. When they realised what they'd done, because they said, oh yeah, we'll ban this marijuana, this obscure Mexican tobacco. As soon as they found out, we banned hemp? You gotta be kidding me, we banned hemp? They couldn't believe it. But eventually it just gets washed away. Disappeared. Because it's cannabis. It's marijuana. It's the same thing we've been using since the day dot. And yeah, I'm getting thirsty, so I gotta get another beer, and I can't just go and stand up because I forgot to put pants on. Tell you what I can do. And that is I can just grab a beer out of the ether and just sit down and have a snort of it. I should have let some of the vaporous gases evaporate first. Anyway, I didn't. So I think it's pretty obvious to see. The solution to all our problems is to grow hemp. Cannabis, yes. Marijuana. And the solution to how we can get around all the drug laws and everything else is just to say, excuse me, Big Brother Sam, because that's where he comes from, Sam I am the American, is to tell him to just go and sit on this and rotate and say that all the drug laws that have existed since the beginning of time have to be just forgotten. Every single last one of them. Forgotten. Eliminated. And say that we, as human beings, whether we got the wherewithal or whether we don't, whether we're dumb, stupid, children, adults, I won't even say men or women because, that's entering into dangerous territory there. We don't want to discriminate just because we're biologically different in the genitalia department. But the thing is, whether we have similar or different or whatever form of genitalia, or age or experience is that the available substances on this earth, for better or worse, are here because nature has decreed they shall be here. Now understand, there are people who will manipulate what nature has given to us and made it more concentrated than what is necessarily safe for us. And that is also nature, for better or worse. I think worse. I don't think that most of these illegal substances are necessarily a good thing, but they are substances of the earth. And so we have to apply our intelligence, our intellect, and say they exist. If we then decide that we are the authority to control them, you can see where it's going. It's just circular reasoning. Who gives us the authority to do so? Nature, God, ourselves, our ego. No ego, nobody has the right to dictate what another person can or cannot do to themselves. That's it. You can intervene if they're harming another. But if you're going to harm yourself, that's upon you. And ideally, you're going to have enough wherewithal inside your head and your God-given talents and intelligence to understand that if something feels so damn good, it's probably bad for you in the long run. I mean, if you have to, if you're tempted to try something and say, wow, fuck yeah, this is great, eventually it will just destroy you. It's as simple as that. It's as much as, I love a beer. I love it. I've given beer up for the last 3 weeks, as you can see. Three weeks I've given up, and it's still got a hold on me. I'm not proud of that. But I'm dealing with it in my own way. I'm an alcoholic, obviously, because first thing in the morning, what I crave is a beer. But what I've done, personally for myself, is I've found that they make 0 alcohol beers. So I'll buy a case of that and have it in my fridge, and so when I feel like one in the morning, I'll have one of them, and I'm fine. Happy days. So this is what we can do. We can take placebos, to help us get over our addictions if we find ourselves addicted. And so I say the same for every single substance on the earth, whether it be cannabis, the refined product of coca leaves, the refined product of the poppy. Most of these, when I say most, everything comes from nature. The ephedra plant, you just ephedrine. Everything originates originally from nature, and then the more we alienate ourselves from nature, the more fucked up the thing is. So all we need to do is return back to nature. And one of the best ways to do that is actually with the cannabis plant. Because if we use cannabis wisely, it basically replaces most of the medicinal things and most of the addictive things that most people would otherwise turn to because they're not having access to the cannabis plant. It's just a fact. Like, I think most people who became heroin addicts probably wouldn't have if they had access to just good, fine cannabis their whole life. And perhaps, if it did lead them down this trail, what led them down that trail in the first place was probably somebody else who didn't have access to good cannabis. So, you know what I'm saying? I think within a generation or two, we could solve all the drug problems of the world, first by just not making them illegal. Let people do what they like. So, unfortunately, there will be a certain percentage of the population who just have no self-control, and they'll do themselves in. It's just the way it is. I mean, they're doing it anyway, aren't they? However, if we then can control it and refine it, so we're getting rid of all the impurities and stuff, and just provide it to them at reasonable cost, that will eliminate 99% of the crime and the black market and all of that associated with it. And a huge part of addiction is that whole cycle of where are you going to get your next fix? How are you going to get it? And so you basically have to get high to commit a crime, break into someone's car and steal their radio. I don't think cars even have radios these days, but I'm talking back in the 80s, man. You know what I mean? The whole crime cycle can just be eliminated immediately by just saying it's a health problem. And so people with a health problem need help with that. And so if we can give them controlled amounts of it until they get over their addiction, that's what we should be doing. I mean, personally for myself, I used to smoke a lot of, well, not a lot actually, because I couldn't afford to smoke a lot, but I'd smoke regularly. I'd smoke little bits of pot in a tiny little pipe. I'd put a third of a little bit, tiny bit, a bit of bud. I'd get a lovely little hit from that, and that's how I'd start my day. I'd go to work, I'd go clean the pub for a few hours, I'd come home, another little pipe. Eventually I got a business. I started doing the same thing. I was still just having a little pipe every now and then, and life was good. Except eventually, because I was always worried, because I'd only buy a little $50 bag. The $50 bag, it'd get me through the week, wouldn't get me through the fortnight, but I couldn't get another one until the end of the fortnight, until I got the next payment. And so that becomes the cycle. But once I had my business up and running, and I met some people who were able to provide it by the ounce, and an ounce is 28, 30 grams, whatever, a big bag. I'd never been able to afford it by the ounce at that stage. And I had $200, so I bought an ounce, and all of a sudden, because I had it there, I could smoke it any time I wanted. That ounce probably lasted me 3, 4, 5 times as long as any other ounce I'd ever bought in tiny little bits the whole time, because I just had it there. And I no longer had that urge to, oh shit, I can only smoke this much. Oh, it's not going to see me through the week. You know what I mean? That's the addiction cycle. It's It's in here. It's in us. The addiction cycle is, I need to get more. 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 Once you've got enough, you break the cycle. You've got enough. You've got all you need. You don't need to think where you're going to get your next 50 from. You don't need to think, if everybody was just growing in their backyards like tomatoes, if you needed some because you felt a bit down or whatever, you needed to smoke some, you would have already harvested some and dried it out and had it there ready and available and be sitting there for when you needed it. Just like if I go to my cupboards now, I've got all sorts of things in my cupboards. I've got herbs and spices and salt and flour and sugar and tins of stuff. But you don't see me racing out to just go and chug down on them because I've got plenty. And I can guarantee it'd be the same with cocaine or heroin or any of these other addictive substances. I think ice is a big one, which I believe is a street name for methamphetamine, which I think is the same thing as speed. Not sure. Probably is. Yeah, things I never personally myself got involved in, but I know a lot of people who have. But I've never once considered that friends I knew back in the day who got into speed were on ice. I think it's slightly removed somehow. Don't ask me how. I'm not a chemist. That's my mother. She's the chemist. Sorry, Mum. I didn't mean to bring you into this. You are a chemist. But yeah. Trying to think of an analogy, and it's not a good one, but it's all I got. So you got a fish, and you catch a fish, and you can see he loves his water. You take him out of the water, and you put him in another environment, and the poor fish is just gasping for water. And you smack him in the head. Stupid fish. Wake up out of it. You don't need water. Look at us. We breathe air. We're air breathers. You need to evolve. Get up out of your level and be an air breather like us. And eventually that fish is going to die from lack of water. Or you're going to come to your senses and say, hey, the fish needs water. Put him back in the water. Let him live his own life. Happy fish. So it's not upon us to save everybody else. Even if people want to go backwards in evolution and become fish. I mean, yeah, let's not assume people believe in evolution, but it's an analogy, if evolution was a thing. In fact, I find it quite amusing that people actually do believe in evolution and gravity and the spinning space ball. And so I guess eventually I'll have to educate you guys. In the meantime, what you have to do is come to your senses. It's upon you. Like I cannot educate anybody. It's not my job. The job of you is to educate yourself. And so you might go through various phases of learning. Some of them might have been compulsory, what you were forced through at school and all that. But at the end of the day, the only one who can think for you is you. You have to think for yourself. If I can help to put knowledge into your head so that you can think about it and put it through the wheels of your, as we call it, cognitive dissonance. You know why we have cogs on wheels? As wheels turn, so cognitive dissonance means you have to put it through your mind. You have to let it run through its course. And over a period of time, you will come to see that the seeds that were planted way back were buried deep enough into fertile ground of your mind to grow fruit. And if not, well, fruit trees need mulch and fertilizer. I know, it sounds terrible, doesn't it? But I'm just being realistic. Blood and bone is very good for the growth of fruit trees. I probably don't have a big enough fan base to be talking that realistically at this stage, but do I look like the type of person that gives a fuck? You might have mistaken me for somebody else. Do you think I give a fuck? I don't. I don't. Simple as that. Your opinion of me is none of my business. At the same token, I do actually care. I do actually have the wherewithal within me and the vision. Yes, that's what most people lack. They don't have the vision. I have the vision to make this world not just a better place, but the greatest place. And I understand most people are bamboozled by this modern era of flashing lights and loud music and bling, bling, bling. You'll have to forgive my stomach recovering from... Today's supposed to be the 4th day of fasting, but silly me decided to eat last night, thinking 3 days, yeah, that'll be right. Bad move. Anyway, so where was I? Bling, bling, bling. Bling, bling, bling. We want to be constantly entertained. Whereas what we really want is silence. We need peace and quiet and solitude and a time to rest and recuperate and have no stimulus. That is what our souls are screaming out for. But of course they can't, because to do so would be to negate the fact that what we want is not what we, you know. It is the big one that I've been saying lately is you can't have gravity without gravity. And I guess I'll finish this off. I've been talking for way too long. You can't have gravity without gravity. And it'd be like saying, well, of course you can't have beer without beer. I'm going to try that. No. I definitely needed beer to have beer. Sorry. So, how can you not have gravity? That wasn't the question. How can you have gravity without gravity? Okay, it's simpler. Can't even think of the words now. You can hear a tractor going off next door. It just does my head in sometimes. One day I'll find peace and quiet. You can't have gravity without gravity, because in order to have gravity, you need to have gravity. Now, if that doesn't make sense, well, let's just break it down. Is that gravity is the attraction of mass. So like the Earth. Yeah, let's not go out into the universe. Let's just keep it down here where we live and belong in. So we believe this spherical Earth has gravity. And that's what keeps us on top and stops us from falling off the bottom. Okay, that's gravity. So gravity is the attraction of mass. So they say. But before you even have this Earth, well, the Greeks saw it as a perfect sphere, because every point equal from the center is equidistant. So it's a perfect sphere. And that existed for about 1,500 years until the Muslim scholars started thinking, well, how can we do experiments upon it? Then about another, somewhere between 1 century and 6 centuries later, Copernicus came back to one of the ancient Greeks. It wasn't a popular one, because the ancient Greeks believed that the Earth was heliocentric, centre of the universe. But one of them apparently proposed that Earth could be a spinning ball, like the other spinning balls we see in space, even though we don't see them spinning, we just see them like as Mars, Venus, Jupiter, Saturn. We don't tend to see too many of the others. Maybe Mercury if you're lucky. Because we tend to think that they're spinning around the sun, that we could put ourselves on a spinning ball as just like one of them and put ourselves around the sun. So eventually, after Copernicus did this in 1542, a lot of people fought against it for a long, long time. Then Einstein came up with, well, sorry, jumping the gun here. We've got to give Newton credit where he's due. Fuck Newton. Fuck Newton. He got hit on the head by an apple. And so he said, oh, the attraction of mass, blah, blah, spinning space ball, blah, blah, everything gets pulled towards the center, blah, blah. Einstein, yeah, well, we can't prove any motion of Earth, therefore it's all relative, and, yeah, space and time is bent. Gravity. Fuck, that's got it. Bent space-time, apple head. Gravity. Then, I think it was in about 19 fucking something, 40 something. It don't really matter because they're all fake years anyway. But anyway, there's this Jesuit priest. He comes up with the idea of the Big Bang. He probably had a name too, that fellow with the name that came up with the Big Bang Theory. And all of a sudden, well, that explains Earth going around sun, moon, Big Bang Theory. And what do you know? Science. So let's take it back a spec. Let's just take it back just a little speck between the Big Bang and the other stuff that come out of the Big Bang. Which one of those that came out of the bang? I've got to stop making that weird noises. It's doing my head here. Which one of those little bits that came out from the Big Bang was big enough to slow down from the... I've got to be very hand wavy about this. To the point where it's biggity, and that's the only word for it. It's got to be the biggity. It can't be just bigness. That's not good enough. It's got to be the biggity of the big thing started attracting the smaller things towards it. And of course, you can take this. Not sure how far you can take it actually. Probably all the way to the bloody supermarket and back and around the world and back again to the same supermarket and still see your same trolley full of goods sitting there, and you'd still never quite grasp why the biggity of one thing attracted the other thing, while the biggity of the other things just ignored the other things. Like the Earth just ignores the moon, but it kind of pulls it along anyway. Because at some point, all these tiny little bits, something had to say, "Ooh, I fancy you. I'm attracted to you. Come and join with me." And so you had attraction of mass. Because it was big. And she goes, "Ooh, I fancy you, you big guy." Boom. Then, all of a sudden, all the other masses around. Dark energy, hello. We need you. Stop everything colliding into a singularity. Thank you. All right. Finally, some equilibrium. So how do you get the attraction of mass from one mass to another mass? Unless that mass had enough mass in the first place. And if it didn't have enough mass, then it wouldn't attract enough mass. So it wouldn't attract mass in the first place. The whole chicken and the egg theory. Everything goes big bang. Everything just goes. Nothing exists without pressure? What pressurizes or pressures you to exist?